The most wonderful time of the year, kids. There's a new Alice Cooper album, and Kelly and I are going to talk about it because that's what we do and talk about Doom. But Doom doesn't figure into this. It's Alice Day. I am Dr. Mike at Official Pagan on everything. Joining me, as always,
Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly at KELLYTHUL. On a recent show, I just did Kelly at Kelly. Like social,
the
I own social
Kelly.
media. Kelly is. You're going to need to tack on that THUL to find me on Instagram and Threads and Facebook if you want, and X if you want. But we would appreciate one place you would go is YouTube to the Blog Panda YouTube channel and check it out. Help us out algorithm wise. Give a few videos likes, leave us some comments, subscribe, and check it out. One of the things we're proudest of on the Blog Panda YouTube channel is Hard No, the world's shortest podcast. It's available. Many episodes can be listened to with minimal time commitment. Um, and while you're doing all that and you've been inspired and you want to show your support for the Panda, you can join the Panda Army. And the only way you can join the Panda Army is to purchase merch. So go purchase merch on our t-shirt thing. That's we have very strict admissions policy. And it's like, did you buy a t-shirt? You're in. So
Here's the important thing, though: no drug test.
absolutely not. Just your payment needs to go through. Get that t-shirt. Many t-shirts to choose from. So something for the whole family, even grandma. There'll be a t-shirt for her. Probably look away from the monsters, but whatever.
I was going to go with Hot by Proxy.
Hot by proxy would be good too. I have big monster hands. These are all wonderful shirts.
It's a real problem. All right. So we are here to talk one of our favorite topics, Alice Cooper. There's a new Alice Cooper album. Now, I think it's important to point out that, particularly in the past few years, we've had sort of uh, we've been spoiled. We've had a glut of Alice Cooper releases. New stuff we had a live album from the Alice Cooper group. We've had all the stuff that's been coming from Hollywood Vampires. And then, of course, a string of Alice releases with Paranormal, the live album, Detroit Stories. There was an EP right before Detroit Stories. Now this, I mean, it's just a lot of stuff for a 75-year-old man to be
Yep.
pumping out.
Keep that
It's
keep that 75 in mind. That's going to come up a little bit later.
it's it's amazing he has time to do that and do interviews that get him into trouble.
Yeah. Yes, that's a reminder. He's 75-year-old man, so
75-year-old
little bit slack.
man. So I mean, we haven't done one of these in a little while, but not as long as the stretches would have been before, or are for most artists, especially somebody who's 75 years old. And we're gonna be doing this again relatively soon because there's gonna be another album on the heels of this. But today we're going to talk about the aptly titled Road. What did you think of the artwork, sir?
So I think the well got poisoned for me a little bit because I am not a huge fan of the lyric videos, the ones that will kind of come out now, where it's kind of promoting a song and they're popping up the lyrics on it, and they take, in this case here, the artwork from the cover, and they basically use that pretty heavily, and they add a couple other elements to it. But I'm not a big fan of that delivery of stuff overall. And so this was my introduction to this artwork was that for I'm Alice initially, and so it's okay. He's had many much better ones. He's had worse ones too. So I kind of put this as a middle of the pack kind of deal. I think it is reasonably well aligned with the concept of this album, which he stays very true to through the entire album. Incredibly true to. And it's got a spider on it. It's got Alice looking menacing, a little bit of the black glove on the steering wheel. So I'd say, I give it about a B minus in terms of cover. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's so I think that Alice has some of the best album covers, and this isn't one of them, but it's also not his worst, as Kelly said. I mean, this is a world where Raise Your Fist and Yell exists.
Yeah.
The that cover image is a thing that was put out that a bunch of people who knew better agreed was the right move. So, I mean, compared to that, this is a masterpiece that should be hanging in the Louvre.
Yeah,
In general, though, it's
we're gonna need to catch up with Dave LaGreca and start pitching him hard because he was toying at one point of getting the raise your fist and yell artwork as a tattoo. And I think at a minimum we say, hey, go with the road. That's better, Dave. Try to push him into the road.
yeah, push it.
Metaphorically.
I wouldn't word it. Yeah, push him into the road. So let's just recap here. Kelly wants to punch Chuck Eric and push Dave LaGreca into the
Into the
road.
road.
So just for anybody who's keeping score. So yeah, I mean, obviously it fits the theme. It's kind of simplistic. There's a little too much negative space in it for me. I kind of wish there was like some stuff on the dashboard to make it like more interesting. I feel like had they put a little more in there, it could have been a more, I don't know, more immersive artwork kind of thing. Like the idea of what's Alice had. Like I like the spider that's coming down, but I mean, there's not a whole lot else going on there. I do like, so for the pre-release singles, it's all variations on the album cover, but with different times of day and different weather conditions. So I kind of like that. That was kind of fun, especially because so releasing multiple singles before an album to streaming services is just what you have to do. It's how the algorithms for them are based. They'll only push things if you have regular releases every 6 weeks leading into the album. So that's a thing. That's how Spotify works and all that stuff. So it's just what you have to do if you want the album that you pushed it out to anybody. Um, a lot of bands will go the lazy route and it's all just the album cover. And I understand that because you're trying to get brand recognition and all that kind of stuff and nail it into people's heads. But I also appreciate when, you get different artwork and different things to look at. So this was kind of a fun compromise on that I was okay with. Again, though, I just wish there was a little more going on in it.
Yeah, even if you had put like little hash marks, and cross marks on the dashboard carved in with a knife, just not knowing what he's counting, what he's done, but it would have just added to the ambiance a little bit.
Yeah, just something. It's just missing something. It's not quite there, is the way that I saw it. So let's just jump right into it. Well, what's your first impression, sir?
So we're big Alice Cooper fans. We're fortunate enough to be in a time where he's putting out new material on a pretty regular basis, which is incredibly awesome. So and almost by default, it's gonna be really hard for me not to like an Alice Cooper album. In our rankings, there's kind of different bubbles of ones that I love and ones that I really like, and ones that I like but don't love. And this is kind of where I land on this album is um, a kind of a like but don't love. It's not a bad album. It's not something I dislike, but it doesn't have some of the magic moments that other albums have had, whether it was either in the storytelling or a couple just amazing killer songs and performances or some clever wordcraft going on. And so that's probably about where I land is that, I like it, but I don't love it. And I'm looking forward to the next one, which, and I think we'll kind of get into it here. He almost, I don't know, kind of set himself up for trouble here because it was at Mike and my encouragement. We said, do an album with the full band. So he heard us and said, sure, I'll do that. And they're tremendous.
100% because of this show.
No question, unquestioned.
You're welcome, Alice Cooper's band.
That's Trump winning Georgia level of surety, so that's how confident we are. So that probably wasn't the best one to throw out there. Sorry, guys. But so it's awesome. The band's in there. He told them to bring their stuff in. And so all of this was good, and they're tremendous musicians. They're great songwriters. So it's huge amounts of talent bundled in there. And of course, he lined up, the all-time get of background singers, Bob Ezrin, who sings background on almost every one of these songs. First time I've ever seen him credited doing that. But to me, I'm interested in where kind of you're at. To me, the stuff that really fires me up about the Alice Cooper stuff is in character Alice. And this is more, hey, I'm the guy that plays Alice on stage, and we're singing a bunch of songs about travel. And so it gets to actually like the people and the people behind it, which make a couple songs land a little when it's about hangers on and maybe dalliances on the road and all that. And it's kind of like, well, that's not, Dylan Alice singing about all the stuff he's doing. That's the guy gets on the bus in the morning to go to the next show. And it's like, so it just, some of that stuff just didn't land as well for me because of that. So I was gonna kind of save this for a song, but I'll kind of throw it out now. Um, you know, for Britain only covers this material. He's got, for Britain only, this is an entire album of different for Britain only. Let me give you every dimension and angle and prequel to for Britain only. But that's for Britain only is sung by Sinister Alice, and it's sung, and it's back in the special forces, coked up Alice doing his stuff, and it is
Away we let go.
that's right, we like our Alice coked up, but he just cranked it on that. And for many of these songs that and that kind of a little storytelling about being on the road and traveling with the band, but this is 12 songs and a fun who song thrown on the end that are just kind of uh, different snapshots of that same trip. So that's kind of a long-winded way around. So I do like it. There's a couple really good moments in here. I think the album starts off strong. We'll get to that in a second here. But I'm not rushing to say, man, I got to get this one another listen in before the show with Mike. How about you?
Kind of in the same place with it. So I was a little concerned when we did our first kind of initial pre-review based on the track list and everything. I was a little concerned by this concept because I mean it's not a concept album in the sense that it's telling a story, and I wish it was because it's really just thematically linked. They're all songs about being on the road. And I got to be honest with you, like this has been done many, many times by other artists, done better, also done way worse than this. But I don't know that there was a lot to mine here. And I really trusted that we're going to get the perspective of the Alice character, similar to what you were saying. And we're going to get some like fun twists on that. And nope, it's just stories about being on the road. And to be honest with you, and again, this is probably Alice is 75. He's a sober, conservative leaning person. It's not the road debauchery that you might expect from an album about a rock band being on there. Sure, there's some references to sex and drugs and stuff, and we'll get into that, but this is hardly like a dark, dangerous road trip kind of thing. And I kind of wish it was just, if you were going to do this record, I wish, like you'd said, it was just in character. I wish there was a real story to it, like an actual concept, other than it's just all songs about being on the road. Recently, we reviewed a KLF compilation and we talked about their song It's Grim Up North. That's from a concept of a road trip album, of them taking a road trip. And there's this whole concept to it, and it's places they had never actually been to and weird like radio stuff that they fit in and all. Like it's cool. It had kind of a concept to it. And this just feels like, hey, what can we talk about being on the road? And or maybe they just had 4 or 5 songs with a similar theme and they were like, that's the record. Just keep going that direction. It just feels weirdly slavish to the road idea and also unfocused, which doesn't make sense. But hopefully as we go track by track, it will.
Yeah, and I think probably the other thing, and Bob Ezrin is tremendous talent, not only as a backup singer, as we've learned, but
I mean, predominantly that's what he's known for, but
his main career, of course, is backup
yeah,
singer Bob Ezrin. But as
right.
it's hobbies, he produces a lot of stuff, and whether it was his tinkering with Pink Floyd and the Wall, definitely early Alice Cooper stuff. He does some amazing stuff. And I've seen an interview too with Alice where he said, yeah, the band all brought their stuff in, and then Bob and I took it all. We went into this room, which is where I think Bob hotboxed Alice to say, I can sing. I need you to the background. all these songs.
You know what this album's missing? Me.
That's right. You need a little more Ezra. And so, but they said we kind of went off and tinkered with it. We came back, and these things may not have been exactly what they thought they were when they gave them to us initially. And so I think, and I think Alice and Bob are buds, and so I think they just got a little bit of tunnel vision, a little bit on this, and lost the thread of the biggest thing is, um, if you're going to do the non-character Alice, you probably need to have a little more storyline in there, a little more room, cover a little more breadth than that. So, it sounds kind of like we're beating up on this album a lot. It's not that. This is a good album. I'd recommend somebody buy it. I think you'll enjoy it. It's just we've heard a lot better.
Yeah, whenever we're doing one of these reviews, you do have to keep in mind this is relative to other Alice Cooper stuff. And we're big Alice Cooper fans. So if it sounds like we're being overly critical of something, it's in comparison to some of our favorite albums.
Yeah, I'm just starting to realize I guess we're the toxic Star Wars fans of Alice Cooper. But we're not, because there's some of his new stuff came out that we've been super fired up about. So
Yeah.
we're not.
All right, so let's go track by track. I'll kick things off. I'm Alice. This was the first song that we heard from this. It was the pre-release single for the album. I enjoyed it the first time I heard it. It wasn't necessarily something that I was like, I have to hear the rest of this right this second kind of thing. It didn't get me fired up in that sense, but and I was correct in my initial assertion that, I'd probably like it better in the context of the album because it feels like an intro. It doesn't feel like a song. It feels like an overblown introduction, and I mean that in a good way, like a big over the top introduction to what the album's going to be. So I enjoyed it the first time. I enjoyed it a little bit more in the context of the album. You, sir?
Yeah, I'd say this is probably like my second favorite song on the album. Um, same path as you. And then on first listen, I'm like, I like it. I don't know if I love it. Um, but in context helps it a ton. He's also in character. I mean, a lot of this song is the Alice character, not the Alice guy that's on the road. So that's you get the you're a movie type um, vocal talk talk section towards the end, and as often Alice's want to kind of be self-referential. Sometimes it's guilty gets shown up in a lot of stuff. We're going to give some love it to deaths on this one, but the main kind of guitar riff from Elected kind of makes a brief appearance at the end of this track, which is pretty cool too. So I thought a pretty strong start. We had a chance to hear it earlier. We talked about it. I've grown to like it more. And kind of across this album, I think it's one of the better performers.
Yeah, it's not my favorite on the album, but it's definitely in the top few for me.
And so if the fanfare in prologue was I'm Alice, now it's time for the show to start. So we get Welcome to the Show as the second one. So, by the way, I'm Alice. There's a couple other writers that I'm not as familiar with, so I'm not going to bring them up. So sorry, guys, you're not going to get a lot of press time. There's a Kay Nelson that shows up a lot on this. I don't know who he or she is, and so I can't really talk about. But Ryan Roxy was another song credit on here, and of course, background vocals provided by Tommy Hendrickson and Bob Ezra.
I gotta say, it's Bob Ezrin's backing vocals that really bring this together for me.
That's right. It was an average song. He kind of elevates Alice on that. And so he brings it again in Welcome to the Show, as he will for every song on this album except one or two. I think that we've talked about this before. There are certain songs you hear, like Woman of Mass Distraction, and even Dirty Diamonds, I think, is another one that's pretty reasonable to say. You hear it and you go, boy, I bet you that's going to be good live. Vengeance is Mine is a good example. I bet you that song's going to kind of go up a notch or two. I think that this could do that, and definitely, I mean, I'm not sure how his next North American tour, I would be shocked if he doesn't open the set with this song. It just makes a lot of sense. The hello hooray of 2023 for them to do that. So I thought it'd be better live. It's got some anthemic kind of stuff to it. So I liked it. And that's kind of where I'm at. You, what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think it'd be better live, and that's probably the case with a few of the songs on this album. And I'll just get this out of the way because I would otherwise just be saying it on multiple songs. There's too much piano on this album.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, too much piano on this. I
I'll
don't know why.
I'll back you on that, except for one. We'll get no. Why do you say it?
Well, I'm sorry.
I thought you said, "Do you want to know why?" Like you're picking a fight.
Oh no. Yeah. I
So,
said I don't know why there's so much
oh,
piano on this. But yeah, there's a lot. I might as well just say it up front. There's a lot of piano on this album. For the most part, it's too much for me. A little bit of flourish here and there would have been fine. And I'm not talking about like synth pads or chords or anything like that. I mean like piano playing on it. That and I get it, like it's going for like an early rock and roll kind of feel, but it doesn't really sit well on the albums. It's similar to like there's a lot of synthesizer playing on From the Inside, and that's what keeps that from being a little higher on my list for me because I absolutely love that album. But the mixing's not great, and the synth parts are way too high in the mix, and they're way too heavy-handed. I'm a synthesizer player saying that, so for whatever that's worth, there's too much. And this is one of those things where I feel like just like the synthesizer parts on that, they were like, hey, we should add some piano, like old time rock and roll music. And somebody was like, that's a cool idea. And I don't think they meant on like 8 of the songs though. That's probably
yeah, and it'll be displayed down here, whether this is true or false. But you know who plays piano? Bob
who's
Ezrin.
that? Backup singer Bob Ezrin.
Backup singer Bob Ezrin has been known to play piano. So I'll have to check the credits and see. My theory is that's Bob, but we'll check the. You'll be provided information on the lower portion of the screen if my theory was disproven or not. So, but yeah, that I'll buy that for the most part because there's one song where I actually think it adds some, but there's one song I feel that way. Um, okay, so I think it's back to you then, right?
Okay, so this brings us to All Over the World. So really settling into the theme here. And my only note on this one is there a story? That was this is where I started to wonder, like, is this just songs that are generalized road trip songs without any real identity between them? And that's not necessarily a good thing to think by song 3. Again, take this all with a grain of salt that we love Alice Cooper. If I'm being critical, it's just because I'm comparing this to like Love It to Death and Billion Dollar Babies and Killer and From the Inside and all that kind of stuff. So I'm comparing this to some of my favorite albums. So by the third song, I was getting concerned that there wasn't going to be a story. Spoiler alert, there's not.
As I mentioned at the start of the review, my personal belief is that all these songs are at least cousins or cousins once removed from For Britain Only. This song is its fraternal twin. This is pretty darn close to the storyline. But again, For Britain Only is sung by villain Alice, not Korean guy Alice, and it's a lot more fun for me. Oh, goody! So I get Dead Don't Dance. um, this is a Keen Roberts. By the way, the last two songs, the band, all the band was credited as kind of group efforts on those. Dead Don't Dance. Keen Roberts makes a reappearance, and I expressed earlier to say, boy, I hope it's Constrictor Keen and not Raise Your Fist and Yell Keen that shows up. That was Raise Your Fist and Yell Keen for me. This song feels like it could have been on Raise Your Fist and Yell. I don't know. You're a lot more knowledgeable on music than I am in terms of the actual execution. But I felt this song a little bit, and there's another song later where I felt really strong about it. It just felt like it was close, but it was like slipping a gear. It was almost kind of hitting the beat and the rhythm and the drive that it needed, and it would kind of get close and start to build up to it, and then all of a sudden it would like kind of just not catch and go forward from there. And so it's a good song. It's just you kind of kept waiting for like that thing that just kind of grabbed you, and it didn't happen. And I thought this was a real muddy song. I in all of this, I don't know. Again, this is your much more your ballpark than mine, but on the mix on all this stuff here, Alice's voice almost felt like a karaoke voice laid across a track of music on some of this stuff, where it just didn't feel as enmeshed as it does to my untrained musical ear. Didn't feel as enmeshed in the music and the delivery as I've heard on other albums. But that's what I
Yeah,
thought.
so I know exactly what you're talking about. So first off, just about this song, I actually like this song. I suspected you wouldn't, because you can definitely hear it's in the direction of Raise Your Fist and Yell musically, of what they were doing there. I think it's better than anything that's on Raise Your Fist and Yell. I mean, that's not a glowing recommendation, but I think it's better than anything that's on that record. And I thought it was one of the better songs on this. It's not my favorite, but it's one of the better songs on this record, in my opinion. Um, there's a weird, so to your point, a lot of the songs on this album, and this is weird, I think despite having the whole live band, they pulled back a little on some of the songs. Like there's nothing that really cuts through on any of the guitar stuff. Like it's kind of just like a lot of the guitars working in tandem. There isn't like crazy solos and things like you'd imagine. There is solos, they're good, but you would think when you're getting this live band who have great solos and different things that they do, you're going to see some of that on this record, and you don't. And that's weird. So I do think like some of the songs feel a little held back. And as you said earlier, they're probably going to work better live. I mean, most of his stuff does, even when we love it right off the bat, just because it works great live. But this is one where I feel like these songs are definitely going to be elevated live, because I feel like there's something that's kind of being held back on it a little bit. And then as far as, so again, this is going to sound like I'm making fun of a backup singer, but or criticizing a backup singer. I don't like the production on this album. So this would be a good time to throw that out there since you brought that up. Overall, and this isn't, I don't mean the piano, I just mean the production itself, I don't like on this record. And I really liked the production on Paranormal and Detroit Stories, and they sound completely different. Paranormal and Detroit Stories. Paranormal sounds great. It's a really strong production. Everything sounds really crisp. It's a great mix. Detroit Stories, in fitting with the theme, has a little bit more of a lo-fi sound to it, a little bit of the edge taken off of it. But again, it's meant to sound like old Detroit rock and roll stuff. So it fits the theme of the record. This just sounds like it just didn't have the attention put into it that it should have, because it doesn't sound intentionally lo-fi the way Detroit Stories does, and doesn't sound crisp the way the Paranormal does. So it's really, and this was something that we both kind of said when we were talking about it, with 2 albums being done, and they're really doing a lot to talk up whatever the theme of the second one's going to be, the big surprise of that. So I'm wondering if one batch of songs got more attention than another.
Yeah, it kind of feels that way a little bit. Where assumption may have been, hey, I got these incredible musicians who've been touring with Alice for a long time. There's not gonna it's not gonna need much attention. You can just pretty much record it and go. And it's just to get really that quality sound. It's you need to do some stuff with it just to kind of make sure that the mix is right. But yeah, it felt like inexpensively recorded is almost the 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 vibe I got. And I can't really put my finger on exactly why I get there, but that's just it didn't feel as rich as a lot of the other stuff. So
Yeah, and
that
I have read stuff where they've talked about it being sort of a live in the studio album. I get that if that's what they were going for. And there are bands who've done live. I've recorded live in the studio stuff where you just do a few takes of everything and kind of get a little bit more of a raw sound to it. That's not really what this is, though. Like, that's a little bit misleading. Maybe that's a little bit of what they were going for. But I mean, there's clearly layered tracks and things like that when you're listening to this. So it's not live. So I think it's just maybe they went into it with the intention of a little bit more of a raw band in a garage kind of sound to it. But I mean, we've heard them do that on Detroit Stories and things like that, where it sounded cleaner than this. So this is just, in my opinion, not a really strong production. And I am guessing that the second album that's coming shortly behind this is probably going to sound better. I think that just got more attention than this did. Similar to like what you were saying, it's something they wanted to do with the live band. They probably didn't spend as much time on it and just figured the band's really tight. Just do a few takes of everything, and it is what it is.
Okay.
That brings us to Go Away. So weirdly, this is, I think, the only song I don't have notes on. So that was a mistake on my
I got you.
that was a mistake on my part. I do remember the song though. I remember liking it. Again, though, a lot of this record, and this is where most of the time I think I just make notes on the things that I think are worth pointing out on songs. A lot of this record's just fine. And this kind of fell into that for me. We're coming up on the songs that I like the best on the record. What did you think of this, sir?
So, as with any Alice Cooper review, I'll talk a little bit about Tonio K, because that's what I do, as one does. So, and I had mentioned this before when we had seen the track listing, where Mike and I were trying to psychically predict what each of these songs would be about.
We were pretty accurate though with
We were
some
in
of
the park on a lot of these. Um, I was crossing my fingers that this was a cover of Tonio K's "Go Away," which would have been a nice little addition at this point in time, that Alice could have sung in character. But Tonio's "Go Away" is superior to this "Go Away," in my opinion. Um, it may be because the primary co-writer of this one is famed backup singer Bob Ezrin. There are no band members on this. There are no. This is
famed
Al's Bob,
backup singer.
and the the and this comes back to what I talked about a little bit earlier, and I get, separate the artist from the song kind of stuff and all that. That's really the way to enjoy a lot of art for the most part. But this is decidedly not the character Alice Cooper plays on the stage, but Alice Cooper and his bandmates. And Go Away, and there's another one kind of coming up that kind of get into this rock band hanger on thing and kind of wish she'd go away. And Alice has, Alice has been married a long time and kind of talks a lot about how seriously he takes that. Chuck Garrick and his wife are really kind of, they, co-write almost all the stuff for Visto Blanco. So these are all kind of family men. And they have a song that is not done as sinister Alice, but more as, yeah, this is a song about what kind of goes on the road. It's like, oh, I don't know. Not like super excited about that. So, but I so that kind of bugged me in the back of my mind. Maybe it's not fair, but it did. So I'm just going to share that. And
I
but
have
I
thoughts
did.
on that on a later song, but
Yeah, yeah. This is they'll turn it up a little bit. But the one part, and Alice has a pretty good track record in the past on kind of throwing sometimes a fun little thing at the end. And we haven't heard us say a lot so far is the word fun. Because one of the things here is that there are some good stuff and there's some rock stuff, but there's a lot of times what's really cool about Alice Cooper stuff is it's fun. And there haven't been a lot of fun songs yet. One of the things he does that I think is kind of fun is he'll throw in these little tidbits at the end where on King of the Silver Screen, he finishes off with frankly, Scarlet, I don't give a damn, which is pretty funny. Department of Youth. He's like, "Who gave you the power?" And the kids all go, "Donny Osmond." Goes, what? So these kind of neat little fade out kind of moments. And this on the go away thing, he does throw in a really nice, funny please. And it's like, just go away, please. And it was nice. I thought it was a nice touch at the end. But overall, I just struggled with a couple aspects of the song.
I also just found out as we're recording this. Otherwise, I would have mentioned it before. This was co-written by Keith Nelson. So there you go.
Yeah. So there you go.
Thoughts on that, sir?
What's that?
Thoughts on that, sir?
No. You?
He's the original guitar player for Buck Cherry. So the song makes more sense now.
Yeah, it does. And Keith actually I think shows up on a couple of tracks here as a credited one amongst the band members and stuff like that. So that was yeah, I wasn't familiar with who that was, but that's a dot that connects. Okay, that helps a little bit. And Bob Ezrin. But Bob's got a writing credit on this one too.
That
Yeah,
makes sense. This is definitely a Keith Nelson, Bob Ezrin.
yeah. The Lennon McCartney. Yeah.
Yeah, the Lennon and McCartney of our era
All
now.
right, sounds cool. So White Line Frankenstein's next.
Yeah, it is.
We've talked about it. This is the one that Mike accurately predicted. His prediction remains accurate today. I like this song. It's pretty good. Tom Morello's the kind of guest on here, and that has a pretty big influence on it. And so it's like I said, I'm not like a huge Rage Against the Machine guy or anything like that. But it's got the spirit of it's got some of that sound coming into it. Married into Alice and all that stuff's good. And it's not a bad song. It's certainly stronger than Go Away in my opinion. And so I thought it was a pretty decent song. And outside of basking in the glow of your accurate prediction of the storyline behind White Line Frankenstein, what else would you like to add?
I mean, it is worth pointing out, not only was I completely accurate, this is the best thematically that the album gets, in my opinion. Um, I think that Rage Against the Machine is an incredibly talented band, and I think Tom Morello is a great guitar player. They are the absolute definition of champagne socialists. So I take anything they do or say in any other respect other than their playing with a truckload of salt. um, always have. So I have mixed feelings about Tom Morello because of that, because of the political stuff that I don't think he really believes, or if he does, he's a really delusional, misguided person. Um, Unfortunately, they're one of those bands, and this is why I typically really like Alice, because he stays away from that. Rage Against the Machine is a band whose politics has vastly overshadowed their music. So it's nice to hear him on a song that doesn't have some weird political agenda on there. So also, I think this is probably my favorite song on the album. It's one of the heavier, more guitar driven songs, which is weird to say because I thought that's what this album would be. But instead, it's a lot of ragtime piano. So,
Little blues
yeah.
in there too.
But this is what I thought this whole album would be, essentially. Is this song sums up what I thought I was getting for everything and didn't necessarily get. But I really like this. This is definitely a song that, if I was making a new Alice Cooper playlist, I would put this on there.
Yeah, but when Alice does his fantasy football draft, and he spent all his big money on background singers, he got the lock in a background. He had to settle for these Nina Strauss and Ryan Roxy and Tommy Hendrickson. I guess these folks can probably play a little guitar. And it's like they could have been utilized better. You get the next one, sir, I think.
Oh, that's right. That's Big Boots. This is co-written by Bob Ezra. There's a surprise. Um, So this was a song, and I guess this is one you accurately predicted, correct?
Yeah. I mean, I had a little bit of help because there was an interview where they kind of talked about
Oh, okay.
I lack your predictive powers, but I did accurately reflect what I read in an article.
I am Nostradamus with song titles. So to what Kelly was saying earlier. Um, when we did our we did a playlist exchange where I threw some Beach Boys songs at Kelly, and there's a song musically that I really liked, but it was them trying to be edgy and political on the lyrics. And the thing that Kelly and I both landed on that is I don't believe them. And I don't believe them on this song. To the things that Kelly was saying, we happen to know that Alice is a happily married and very conservative guy, and that's a part of his whole thing. And so I don't think this is him. And, a lot of the band members, as Kelly pointed out, are, married or settled down and serious about their relationships and things like that. And I don't buy this song. I don't believe them. Also, too, again, because of going back to the other things that we just said and why I don't necessarily buy into the premise of the song, it never gets edgy enough to sell it either. Like a Buck Cherry song would, for example. Buck Cherry has an album called so there's so that's only one thing Kelly has to censor, so that's not um but like if this were a Buck Cherry song, for example, they would be much more detailed in where they were going with this. I feel like this is somebody trying to sound like that, but not actually say any of that kind of stuff that Buck Cherry would say in a song. What were your thoughts there?
So this is actually my favorite song on the album.
I didn't dislike the song. It's just I don't believe them.
Yeah. It one, I'm intellectually about a 4-year-old. So there's elements of this song that have just like it just kind of go along. This was one, and we may disagree here, but this was one actually where I thought the piano this is a piano forward song. And I think it works. It's not a
I'm gonna
typical Alice Cooper sound, but there's a whole lot of piano going on in this thing. And I didn't mind it on this one. And I think I thought this was a fun song. I'm with you that, so my rationalization on this is that we're back to stage Alice here. So stage Alice would sing this song. This would go on. I'll buy stage Alice doing that. And that's maybe why I like it, is that I'm kind of in my mind going, oh, that's stage Alice doing that. And so he can say whatever he wants and all that, even though to your point, it's like, yeah, we want to be kind of edgy, but it's like, yeah, you're not. You got a lot of room. You could get a lot edgier. Um, and I forget if it was $1,000 high heels. And again, corrected on the bottom on Detroit Stories that this is again a close cousin to as well. I think in terms of structure of the song and kind of the just general impact from there. But at least to me it was fun. Uh, but we've talked before about there are times when uh, Alice throws a little thing at the end that kind of is a nice little smile at the end of the song and all that. On this one, he had achieved his goal. He didn't need to, but he has to finish it off with what they say about big boots. It's like, yeah, we get it. That was their whole point on this. It's like you didn't. It's like get it. It's like I just still felt a little get it at there at the end was unnecessary. But it was possibly because it's for me the funnest song on this album. And that I went in there, and of course the background vocals are strong as throughout the album.
the background vocals are what make this entire project.
No doubt.
So
So then I think I've got rules of the road. So back to Tonio K, as we do, as we talk about. Um, if you're going to count down things in a song, a lot of people have done that in a lot of songs. Um, uh, Living Doll. It's a Tonio K song off of Romeo Unchained, I believe. And he gives us the countdowns in there. It's a stronger countdown song than this one, in my opinion. So Tonio did a better go away, and he can count down numbers better than Alice, or count up numbers, I guess. But again, this is all in this kind of single lane of, we went and had brunch, and then we got on the bus, and then there, we saw there was like a baby buggy on the side of the road that had been tipped over. You're getting like excruciating chunks of being on the road through there, to a degree. This is Rules of the Road. This one, I wonder whether he's trying to get a little preachy here, because he's kind of talking, some of it seems like potentially sound advice. Get your money up front, that kind of stuff. That seems like good advice. Then towards the end, he tells you, yeah, you follow all these rules and you die, And so it's like, I know better than you on that. So I really wasn't sure where this song was going. You take across kind of the narrative going through it as a song. It's pretty cool. Antonio does the number thing slightly better on Living Doll, but it just, this was one that there's usually kind of a coherent narrator's voice to some of the stuff with Alice, or at least where you're kind of coming from. This seemed askew to that. And again, just not really breaking out a lot of new territory. What were your thoughts on Rules of the Road?
So, to me, going into this song, obviously, ass, gas, or grass are the rules of the road,
Which were not provided.
which are not at all mentioned in the song. So I was deeply confused at where we were going here. So then it turns out to be a rules of the road for somebody who's an aspiring artist, I guess. And this doesn't match my rules of the road for that, which I guess is gonna be
yeah, you don't count.
which I guess is gonna be the second thing Ellie has to cut, which is don't count on the road. So,
two solid edits.
Alice doesn't say that either, so I'm deeply confused by where this is going. I feel like this song. So again, it's the road. So there's that, and I feel like complaining about that at this point is pointless. I wish there was more of a story. I wish there was more variety to the themes, but it is what it is. Um, if this was done in character as Alice, and it was some sort of skewed, weird, terrible advice that he's giving people about being on the road, then this could be a really fun song, but it kind of falls short of that for me.
Yeah, no, I'm with you exactly, because and I would love to hear the rules of the road from the character Alice, because that would be fun. It would be much more aligned with the Mike list, because yeah, I think this is non-stage Alice kind of offering advice. Some of it made sense because some of it was about getting the money, make sure you get the money. Other parts, I don't know. It was different. And again, it's just to your point. It's like there's lots of narrative but no story here on this thing, and it's all just kind of running in there, which is
You really summed it up perfectly. My overall thoughts on this album: a lot of narrative with no story.
So then we get to The Long Goodbye, which I think, throw a curve here, would have been a better Bisto Blanco song. So I could see, because I have a hard, I can't believe I'm saying this, but there's not the menace that comes from Chuck Garrett, the vocal punch, growl, tear of Chuck Garrett, and Bisto's just sound overall would have punched this song way up. It would have made it better. And as I listen to it, and I go, boy, if this Bisto would be kind of killing this song. It would sound be a little faster, but pretty much the same structure and all that. And it just And this some of this may come into the production and the mix and all that, but it just it didn't come across with the punch I thought it needed to for it to be a top tier song for me.
Yeah, I mean, what I liked about this song, and I think Kelly really nailed it with this would have been a better Beasto Blanco song, where it's something that's more guitar driven, which is weirdly absent on this album. Going back to what I had said earlier, you would really think with all these great guitar players on here, we're going to get lots of heavy chugging guitars, and there's not. There's piano. Uh, there's just not what I thought the record would be. So this is more guitar driven. So I did like that. It is a song I really liked. Didn't quite get to the like playlist going back and revisiting this level, but you really nailed it with this would have been a better Beasto song.
Well, maybe it will. They've done Feed My Frankenstein, so
That is true. All right. So that brings us to the next song, Road Rats Forever. This is a song about the road. It's kind of a recurring theme a little bit on this album. Um, what I so I love the bass on this song. This is the first song where the bass was really stand out, and it didn't just serve the material, but the bass really pops on this song. You know what else is on this song? Piano. Lots of piano. This is actually the one where I think it bothered me the most.
yeah, because Lace and Whiskey, that heavy metal rocker, Lace and Whiskey was fairly confident that was, I mean, one of the big standouts on Road Rats is it was a major guitar delivery of, and there's some great, Road Rats has got some great guitar work available. You can really do it up. Um, so outside of piano, any other thoughts you wanted to share on this one?
Just that I thought the bass was great on this
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, and it did seem like part of it, and we'll get to a very clear example of this a little bit well at the end of the album, but it does appear that their effort was made to make sure everybody in the band kind of had a spotlight moment of some sort. And I think this was trying Chuck's in terms of
Yeah.
letting him the bass, which I thought was a definite improvement to the song. Road Rats is a really good song anyway. It actually now has three good versions. there's the original version. It's one of the strongest songs on Lace and Whiskey. It was then mildly adjusted for the Meatloaf classic Roadie. Road, here we go again. But Roadie had Road Rats in it, and Alice re-recorded it for that, and that's a pretty decent version. Um, and I like this one, particularly with the bass stuff on that. And um, there's a lot of songs that I'm not alone in this, that you love, you're singing along, and there's just like a couple portions of the song that you're like la 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 la, and you're not really sure what the words are. And this is actually the first version of Road Rats, where it's some of my favorite parts of the song, where they're like, we're the men behind the band, and then so it was always we're the men behind the band, and to me it was blah 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 blah. I wasn't really sure what it was, but I liked it. It's like, yes, this is really good. Did you know what those words were?
No, no.
Backbone Muscle Clan. We're the Backbone Muscle Clan.
Never would have gotten there.
And I never had until this version. So at least the production and recording were nice and crisp there for me to go, oh, it's Backbone Muscle Clan. Okay, that's what it is. There was another line in there that I wasn't. I can't really tell on the Lace and Whiskey one where uh, then they're like, if the stars can take it, if the band can shake it, well, if those guys can take it, we can. I thought there were some later versions of that chorus that were, if those guys can take it, who cares, kind of thing. But I think it's always we can on that. But it was still a fun track. This one though, um, much like Generation Landslide 81, a tack on track on the vastly underrated Special Forces album. Alice added some new lyrics to Generation Landslide. Um, and Generation Landslide lyrically, pretty amazing piece of work as is. What he tacked on in for Generation Landslide 81 was okay, but you're just used to this really high quality. On this song here, they kind of throw in some additional lyrics on the second half to make it Road Rats Forever, make it a little different. Um, Super not impressed with the additional lyrics to Road Rats. I think they should have left it alone. Bring up Chuck's bass and deliver it the way it is. But I wasn't real impressed with the added lyrics.
Is it me next or you? I've
I
lost
think
track.
I think you introduced Road Rats Forever. So now I've got Baby Please Don't Go. Um it's a ballad, and I've talked about this on a couple other reviews, and I think the reviews probably where I said this the most were Poison and Hey Stoopid, which is this isn't a bad song. I'm not sure it's an Alice Cooper song. And a lot of people could do this song. And the best thing on Alice Cooper stuff is when there's a song to say, I'm not sure who else pulls this off but Alice Cooper. Um, and this one seemed highly available to other people to pull off, except Hanson, who wouldn't be able to do it at all. He'd be terrible at it. But a lot of other bands could probably do it. So I didn't think there was anything super special about this. This this is another one that I've got Ezrin down as the co-writer. So I mean, he is on the credits of everyone. There are a few where it's just Alice, Bob, and one other person. He's present here again. Um, but I just thought, I mean, it was okay. Uh, I'm not a huge power ballad metal guy, but I've liked the ones that Alice has done in the past. I think the ones he's done in the past are stronger than this one, but this is decent. I think it's solid. Your thoughts?
So I liked it. To your point, it does sound like something other bands could have done. What I think is interesting about it specifically sound so the way the guitars are layered, with the acoustic guitars up front and then the electric guitars kind of pulled back a little bit in it, when it would normally be the opposite of that, with the acoustic guitars sort of adding the overall, just filling out the sound and adding the rhythm to it. That's a very 90s alternative rock way to mix the song. So I thought that was interesting, but at the same time, then you're drawing comparisons to other bands. And when you have somebody like Alice, you shouldn't be doing that, to your point. So
I think you're lucky enough to have the next one.
that brings us to 100 More Miles. So what I liked about this song is I felt like this was the first time on the album you got some like atmosphere to it. And this is something that I feel like the album's been missing mostly. Even the more guitar driven songs that I liked on here, there's none of that like Alice Cooper atmosphere that you have all the way back to, I mean, as soon as you ditch those first two records, you have all the way back to Love It to Death with songs like Black Juju and things like that, where there's almost like a darker atmosphere to it. This is the first and only time on this record that you get a little bit of that.
Yeah, this was a Alice Cooper, Bob Ezrin, Chuck Garrick composition. So that's it. And Beasto again. So this might have been another good Beasto song. Let's start there. But I would agree 100% that this is the first time we break out of, well, I checked in at 3 o'clock on the road, then there was a Red Lobster across the street. We went over to that.
The Red Lobster Biscuit song.
More biscuits. She's got big biscuits. Big. So yeah. Uh, so this breaks out of that kind of rhythm, and just tonality wise too. That this one, and we've seen this a little bit on some of the some of the later albums, not too much where it's sometimes it's not like you're not exactly sure what the overarching groove is. You get ones where the groove is super clear, like Dragontown, Brutal Planet. It's like got it. Long Came a Spider, got it. You're going in there. But then things like Welcome to My Nightmare, um, all over the place. And um, the Last Man on Earth off of Welcome to My Nightmare 2. It almost, the vocal is again very atmospheric on that. Um, and this one's a little harken back to it a little bit as well. So I thought it was okay. I mean, it was, it is also a departure from the rest of the album because it is a lot more atmospheric. And but it catches your attention that way. So I appreciate the diversity. Good addition to the album from that perspective. So we wrap things up with the Who classic Magic Bus. I'm a big Who fan, and so I've heard Alice do My Generation, band do My Generation in past concerts. They do a nice solid job of that. And so I was interested to see Magic Bus, which is not typically viewed as a driving heavy metal song, see how they kind of pull it off. I think it's a pretty good version. I enjoyed it. I forget sometimes the Who are from a place called England, and they talk funny over there. They use, and so they had to. I didn't realize it until going through, but there was just lyrics I'm super familiar with. Um, Early in the song, "Thank you, driver, for getting me here." The Who version is, "Thank you, driver, for getting me here. You'll be an inspector, have no fear." Um, Means something in England. Don't know what it means, but it means something in England. Means nothing here. So Alice aptly changed the lyric to, "I'm going to buy you a case of beer." Very American. Way to go, Alice, and do that. There's a little bit more about something in sixpence every day just to get to my baby that obviously didn't make the American cut from there. But so dress some of that funny English language stuff that they do over there. And I thought it was, as much as, Magic Bus doesn't have the bones to be a thrash song. This is not probably a gore one. I don't think they're going to grab onto this one anytime soon. But they punch it up pretty nice. And this is one where, he's done his work. So Mr. Ezrin got to take a break on the background vocals, and all the background vocals on Magic Bus are the band. So that's pretty sweet on that, because there's a lot of call and response in Magic Bus. So that's good. And then, as we mentioned, everybody got a chance to kind of show their stuff, highlighting Chuck on bass earlier, a lot of guitar opportunities. Got a drummer. What could you have a drummer do to kind of stand out? I don't know. Maybe have him play a solo. Maybe have him play the solo that he pretty much plays most live concerts, based on what I heard there. So there's a big drum solo not present in the typical version of Magic Bus. Who had a not too shabby drummer as well. But Glenn Sobel's awesome, and so it was fun to hear that. So I thought the drum solo at the end was nice. It did feel like, check. Okay, we got everybody. Everybody need a little spotlight time. Oh, we forgot to drummer. It's like last song, throw them on there at the end and do that. But I thought they did a very. I like their take on Magic Bus.
Yeah, I agree. So I do enjoy the Who. I'm not a huge fan of this song. I think this is a good cover of it. I did catch the sort of Americanizing or fixing and correcting of the lyrics as there
It's
were.
fixing. They were wrong. Now
Yeah.
Americans, that's right.
Yeah. We were teaching them how to speak English here in America. So correcting those lyrics was nice. The drum solo, though, I think is the most important thing to point out here. As Kelly already mentioned, so I did enjoy the drum solo. The Who, as you said, had a drummer who was fairly well known in his own right. But I enjoy drum solos on stuff. They don't appear too often on albums. It's more of a live thing. and there's a good reason they don't usually appear often on albums. I've heard a lot of prog albums where there's extended drum breaks and solos and things, and it's boring usually. So when it can be pulled off on a rock record, well, I really, really appreciate that, because there's not a whole lot of examples of it, to be honest with you, in my personal opinion.
And that, folks, is Road. And maybe it sounded like we were being mean to the crew, but it's mean out of love. It's just our thoughts, and it is, to Mike's point, everything's relative. Like I said, I'd still recommend people buy this album. I think it's a good album and enjoy it. It's just I've heard other stuff from Alice that I like a lot better. So a couple good moments in there, and looking forward to the next one. So this is Razorfish Danielle mentioned it several times before that I had to step away from Alice for a few years with Razorfish Danielle. This I'm not going anywhere here, and I'm glad he keeps putting stuff out. But it was it. So we have ranked, this is now solo album 29 of Alice's works. We have been ranking them. We have these song by song. You can go check it out on the YouTube channel. Go to the killer one, give it a dislike. Everybody does. I don't know why.
It's what all the kids are doing.
We like it. I think we thought I don't get it, but it's like one of our most viewed, if not our most viewed video, and for whatever reason gets a lot of hate. So
It's really interesting because we both liked the album. So
yeah.
is it just, are we on the wrong side of this? Do people hate Killer?
I think they hate us. I think at least they hate us on that show. I don't know. I didn't find this particularly offensive. I did make some minor adjustments because at the beginning of the show we were doing some other things as well, and I did a little promo for something else we were doing, and I said a few things there that might have, well, I know, set some people off because we got some comments about it. So the version that exists today, all that's gone. We just get right into the album.
I would have left all of it.
Yeah, it still chugs along. Gets a lot of views and a lot of dislikes. So, we'll see on that. But I will go ahead and start. And so briefly before the show, Mike and I were talking about ranking and all that, the hours and hours and hours we put in place to make sure we're ready when we come in here to talk about this. And as he was talking through some of his rubric, he very quickly came to Detroit Stories as kind of an anchor point. Kind of say, okay, so this thing is Detroit Stories sits somewhere in the list, and this is going to be close to it, either slightly above or below it, which was actually exactly my thinking too. And that became, and I like Detroit Stories better than myself. So Mike liked Detroit Stories a little bit better than I did. So this falls in my bubble. We talked about at the beginning of the love it to death. I love them to death, not just love it to death, Mike, but the ones I'm super big fan of, the ones that I like a lot, the ones that I like and don't love. So this is in the like, don't love camp. And because Alice has done so much stuff, the number might sound a little low to you, but it's still amongst good company because it's going to be right next to Detroit Stories, but it's going to be just below Detroit Stories, which actually puts it at 22. Above Zipper Catches Skin, which has Zorro's Ascent, which is one of my favorite Alice songs of all time. So I had it lower on my list than Mike did. So recognizing that again, your Detroit Stories things is going to be a bit of a nexus here. Where are you at on your list?
By the way, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna, not to repeat too much of what Kelly just said, but it sounded like I was being very critical of this album, but I'm being critical of it next to some of my favorite albums. I'm not comparing this to other albums that came out this year. I'm comparing this to Alice Cooper's discography. So and you have to kind of keep that in mind. So Detroit Stories is kind of where it's not going to be above Detroit Stories for me. That's kind of where it's landing. So right now, and I think we should go back and do a show where we go back over our list and see if we still feel the same way. So for now, I'm going to put it right below Detroit Stories.
Yeah, because you have the great wrong of Special Forces is far too low on your list.
Yeah, that's one of the things looking back at it, because I didn't dislike Special Forces. So I'm curious as to why. Like, I need to go back and look at my list and think over some stuff, I think. But for right now, this is gonna go right below Detroit Stories.
Sounds good. Yeah, and I think we will do a show here pretty soon where we will revisit. Now we haven't been to this list in a little bit, so drop them in there. And us going back through there and looking. There's certain aspects of this list I feel very confident about, and that's tippy top and very bottom. Those
Yeah, same.
aren't going to change a lot. But it's that section in the middle. There's so much good stuff, and maybe upon further reflection, this thing moves up a little bit. But there's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of good stuff. So check out in the description of the video, you'll see our lists, and we'd love to hear yours as well. If you go back far enough, if he is, if he hasn't required us to take down all of his content because I threatened to push him into the road, Dave LaGreca joined us one time, and he provided his list as well. So I'll include a link to that show, which is a fun show. Dave's awesome. And you'll have in the comments of the video for that his rankings of time, which Mike and I are pretty close. There are a few places we had big departures, but not many. We're basically almost all of our rankings were kind of within 3 positions of each other almost all the time. They brought in some different points of view, which was interesting, and so I have to check that out. So we're lucky that Alice continues to put stuff out. I got another one coming. Excited to do that. I will go listen to Big Boots again and be happy about that. I don't know. I mean, that's the other good question though, is I don't know, with the exception of Big Boots. Maybe I'm Alice. I'm not sure. Think about a playlist at some point. I mean, I think it would be tough when you think about all of Alice's stuff for any of these songs to break in the top 20 Alice songs.
Yeah,
But it's just tough. I'm not sure there's a whole lot of playlist candidates here, but give it a few more listens. My mind may change.
absolutely. Well, yeah, I definitely think, we need to revisit our lists soon, because that middle section, I feel like, things can move around depending on where we're at in our lives and how we feel about it. I don't foresee any movement in our top or bottom, though, like Kelly said.
Yeah, yep, cool. Well, so at length you've heard our thoughts, so it would be great to hear what you think as well. You agree with us, disagree with us? Are you looking forward to the next album? Your thoughts on this, let us know. There's other albums you'd like to see us brutalize. Yeah, do that, we will. Actually though, we only review albums where Bob Ezrin's a background singer now. So keep that Bob Ezrin stuff coming our way, because we're team Bob.
Bog Panda.